Here's my process on how I underwrite a piece of land, specifically an infill lot, which is a piece of land already in an established area. So this is a piece of land between one house and another, how to come up with a number where you can ultimately make money. And if you were to wholesale it, sell it to a developer or a buyer on the back end. So how to arrive at this number, this video is going to solve that. And I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars selling infill lots. And so I'll show you how I come up with a number that makes sense. So we're gonna do one as an example. We're gonna do this property in Florida. So the first thing I do every time I underwrite is I'm just gonna go to Zillow. And I'm gonna see how hot the market is, just to see, okay, are things selling here? Where are we? So we're outside of Tampa. If I just scroll in right now, it will pull up where the lot is. And I'm also gonna use land ID, which it is, you do have to pay for land ID. However, I highly recommend if you're gonna do more than one deal to pay for land ID, because it'll show you a lot of other things and buy back a lot of your time, because it's a one-stop shop for a lot of things you need to know for the land itself. So I'm gonna scroll in, and it looks like here is the piece of land. So it's good to see. Now let's scroll out though, and let's just see how hot the market is. So what I do is I usually just do it for houses, just in general, how quickly houses are selling. I'm gonna make sure the filters are reset and click on houses. Okay, 1,267 houses are for sale right now in Tampa, Florida. Out of those, okay, 1,858. So I'm gonna go to the calculator. 1,858 minus the difference, minus the 1,267. 1,267 equals 591 properties are pending. And so I'm going to divide that by 1,858, 1,858. And so 31% of the market is pending. So that is a normal market where I would say, hey, there are people buying. If it's under 20% or around 15%, that's a slower market. A lot of things it takes a lot of time for these properties to sell. And then if it's above 50%, or as you get higher, then hey, it's a very hot market. You can be more aggressive on your offer. So this is just a data point I'm going to take into account as I go through this process. So let's scroll in and see what's going on. And I'm actually going to go into land ID. So I'm using Simply here. This is how I'm just gonna keep track of where my numbers are at. So this is a CRM that we use. If you're interested, I'll link below to the CRM. Very beneficial. Here it is. It's 0.12 acres, 5,428 square feet. And so what I'm looking at is how big the lot is and what is it zoned at. And we're gonna have two phases here. We're gonna look at what land is selling for, and then we're also gonna look at what single family properties or whatever the zoning is, if there were to be a building on it, what that would sell for, and we could work backwards on how much we would pay for the land. So two different phases here we'll dive into. Right now, though, I'm just kind of calibrating myself of what's going on with this land. So it looks like it's assessed at 131, 0.12 acres, 5,400. And as I dive more into this, one thing I highly recommend to do is call in the town if you are going to get this property under contract, or try to at least get this information from the seller, are the following questions. And you guys, I'll have a PDF, I could send this to you guys, and also a script that I use when I talk to the town. But it's these following questions I'll quickly just dive into, and then I'll go into how to underwrite. But yeah, these are all the questions that you would ask that will help you understand what exactly is going on with this land. So I won't go through each one, or maybe I will at the end of the video, but for now I've asked a lot of these questions so I know what's going on with this piece of land. So it is 5,661 square feet, and you can build a single family property on it. So here it is, and I'm going to click water, and I'm going to see if there's any water. Right off the bat, if there's water here, it's a dead deal, or it's a lot harder, it would be a lot less in price because it's a lot harder to build when there is water on the land. So right now it's on the flood zone, which is amazing. There's no surface water, there's no wetlands. Cool. And I could do like this as well, but let's just do that. So that's great to see. And you can see over here though, and just to describe the infill lot, it's between this house and it's between this house, infill lot, where it's already between an established houses in an established area. So here, for example, say we had, let's just say like this lot, we would just adjust pricing because it's in a flood zone. So there's that. So that is just something to consider. And then let's just say, for example, here, say our lot was like right here, we would know that, okay, there's wetlands and surface areas, surface water, so we may be limited on what we could build, so we would be less in price. So big thing is knowing what's going on with the water, and land ID is just a quick way that you can accomplish that, in addition to getting more information on the actual. And then you also could kind of see too, like, this kind of a side thing, but if it was in the middle of nowhere, I can actually go to say 3D, and I could see what if it was like on a mountain or whatever the case is, because that does affect the building. So Florida is very flat, so, or at least this area, so that's not a big deal here. But that's just something too that you can do with land ID, which is cool. And this is like the high level of what I do with it. I basically, hey, look at the information, see if there's water, and see what I'm looking at. You can do this with Google though. So now I'm gonna actually start looking at comps. So let's go here. Here's our property. Our property's right here, and I'm gonna reset these filters, and I'm gonna start with land. So I'm gonna go here, land, and I'm gonna see what's for sale, and I'm also gonna see what's sold. So our property is right on North Dartmouth Ave, so it's right here. And best practice is you'd rather stay in the same area and go back in time when we start doing for sold comps versus going to another neighborhood, because there could be crime there, it could be a whole different thing, and prices change really quickly. So I highly recommend just staying in the same area if you can. So look like this property is selling for $260,000. Nowhere near. It's been on the market for 3/4 of a year. It's 6,048 square feet, so a little bigger than ours, and it's wooded though. So this is telling me, okay, right now my ceiling on price is $260K. Ours is an advantage as it's already cleared, but this is a little bit bigger. So in a perfect world though, I'm actually below this price. So let's see if there's anything that's pending in this area. Yeah, so 260K. So now let's look out for sold. So I'm in this area. We got one across the street. So there is that. I don't know if this is in a different neighborhood. Anytime you see the big lighter gray area, that you're crossing a major road. So just take it with a grain of salt. So it looks like this one bigger than ours. And if you do the square foot method, it took about a little under 2 months. It sold for $289,000. Okay, and let's just see what ours would be at. So if I do this calculation for square foot of 289 divided by the 8,850 square feet, 8850, I'm at $32 per square foot that this buyer purchased at. And if we times that by our square footage, I'm at $184,000 purchase price. So that's just back of the napkin. This is in a different spot, but right now, okay, don't want to be really higher than 260, even though that property it wasn't cleared. 180 is what this buyer was buying per square foot, and it did sell quickly. So safe to say, if I got this below 180, hey, I could move this quick because this is a clear lot. Quick tip: say I were to get this property under contract at a price where it makes sense to sell, to find a buyer, I would call this buyer agent and be like, hey, I have a lot that is similar to the one that your buyer purchased. Would they be interested in looking at the one that I have? And that's one way that you can get a buyer. And I actually did that exact strategy, and I sold a infill lot in under 3 days doing it. It closed 3 days because the title's already open, and I made $13,000 in 3 days just doing that strategy. So one thing to note, your best buyers are your comps, even though this one is across the street, but just something to know. We got this one at 458, which is crazy. It's smaller than ours. I would want to know the story here. So built in 2022, which doesn't really make too much sense. So I'm looking here. Per the city, this is a vacant lot and will need a variance to build. Not need a variance to build. Okay, so one thing to note is that the more work that is done on land where there's permits and everything's already ready, that adds a huge value. So it looks like that has already occurred here. Ours, we don't have the permits yet. It is an established area already, so we can assume that there's utilities, water hookup, all that stuff is already there. So it does go a long way. But when there's already permits and stuff, that adds a lot more value. It's hard to figure out an actual number depending on the area, but that is a big thing. So good to know that, okay, our cap is 458. Like, we wouldn't pay any more than our lot at 458. Some new construction sold between 280, 260. Interesting. So I'm not gonna do too much with that. Now let's look at new builds. What are new builds selling for? So ours is a residential property, so we can build a single family property on this lot. What are new builds if I go for sale? And we can also see houses. I'm gonna do for the past few years, new builds. I'd say in the past 2-3 years, and let's just say 2023. Okay, so we got this property selling for 1.45 in this area. Selling for 1.45 million. And so the general rule is 20% of the ARV after repair value, or what things are fixed up as, or what new builds are going for, or sold at rather. 20% of that is what a buyer would buy, or rather a developer for that infill lot. So 20% of this is around $300,000. Square foot is 8,850, a lot bigger than ours. So I'm gonna keep looking, but that's just good to know. And this is overpriced. So this will probably sell for like 1.2. It's been on the market for 3/4 of a year. So let's look at this one. We're going a little farther away, but this one is on a smaller lot, million, not selling, but does have all right activity. So I'm like, okay, good to know. So if I just did $1 million, did 20% of this, I'm out around between 200K and 220. Look at this one, 20% of this property, we do a bigger lot. So I don't know if you could build as big of a property as ours, because there is that setbacks, density requirements, all that stuff, and you can get that from the town. But that is just something that you would want to consider. This one is way overpriced. It's been on the market for a year at $974. That's crazy. Let's just look at, so right now I'm like, okay, things are going for the million. It's not crazy, so 200K is realistic. But let's just see what's actually sold for. I want to stay in this area, so let's just see this one. This is 2024 though. So it's good to know, okay, 20% of this, I'm at like 150. And by the way, how I'm doing the math really quick is I'm just timesing the first number by 2. That's how you can do it. So 810,000, a lot smaller lot, sold for 810K, built in 2025. So that gives me encouragement that, hey, we have a bigger lot, we can get somewhere. So right now I'm at like 160 or so. And it's right here, it's right down. Yes, we are crossing this, but let's see this one as well. 2024, 874. So safe to say that between $800,000 and $900,000 is what a new build would go for. And so let's just do this. New build go for 800 to 900K. And if I did 20% of that, that's 8 times 2, so 160 to 180K. 180K a developer would purchase. And then I arrived at 180K from the from square foot method, and now bring this all together. It is not a very slow market. It is Tampa, Florida, and it's, I would say, normal. So I would be okay to offer 180K, or rather that's what I would sell it for. So let's work the numbers backwards. That's a little calculator here. So let's just say 180,000 is what I would sell this property for. I times it by 95%. And that 5% difference is, say, if I were to flat fee this on MLS, and if you guys are interested in that avenue, I have a whole video on how to approach that. But say I were to flat fee on the MLS, that would be around 3% that would go to a buyer's agent, and then 2% to closing costs. And so I take out 5%, so I'm at 171, and let's just say a wholesale fee of 30K. My offer would be 141,000. And so that is how you can underwrite an infill lot and come up with a number that you would be confident in. And look at that too. It's good to see the estimated value was 886K. So you could see that, hey, if new build, it would go between 800 and 900K. So to go over these questions that I would ask the town or ask the owner and get as much information as possible, I'm going to go over why to ask these questions and why it's helpful, and how asking these questions actually enables you to sell for the property, sell the lot for more on the back end. And so what I do is I speak with the code enforcement officer or planning zoning department. I would just look up Tampa, Florida planning zoning department, and I would write that phone number down and call them. And I would ask all this information about this address and let them know, hey, I'm in the process of purchasing this lot. Just wanted to get some more information on this piece of land. So is land buildable? What is the current zoning? I am looking at single families. Let's say it was not that, it was like a multifamily property. I'd be looking at multifamily properties. So it looks like this whole area is not zoned for that. That's just something that you want to be aware of. Because if it is, maybe if multifamily property is selling for $5 million, you can spend a lot more, right? So there's a lot. Do you want to know what the zoning is, or if it could be adjusted, or whatever the case is. So any frontage, density, or setbacks is basically all the information that a builder would know of like, hey, if I were to build a property, where could it go in this lot? Is it on flood zone? Land ID you can see from there, or you could actually ask them as well. Is it serviced by public water and sewer? Any encumbrances? So this just lets us know like, hey, where like the access to the lot itself. Wetlands, understanding all of that. And then can we split the lot in half? That's one thing to be aware of. That's one way to add value. And then all this information as well is helpful. Just, hey, can you put a mobile home on it? Like, what can you do with a lot? And having all this information that you can share with the builder and doing their homework rather for them, or just in general, goes a long way, because it lets them know, hey, this is what I could spend for the property, and this is what I could do with it. So highly recommend all this. If you guys like the script, comment down below and I can give you guys the script on how to actually ask these questions. Another quick tip is for raw land. So say it's a property that is in the middle of nowhere, not in a Tampa, or rather a city established area. Say it's like way out here. Say it was like in the woods. Rather than doing 20%, say it's like something right here, I would do 10%. So if it's not an infill lot, if it's not between two houses, say it was just a piece of land right here, not between houses, or rather just like really far out there, I would go 5 to 10% of ARV. So whatever properties are selling for fixed up or new builds are going for, let's say $1 million, I would be at 50,000 to 100,000. And I would take into account all the other data points, but that's just another back of the napkin thing. So around 15 to 20% for infill lots, depending on the area, and then 5 to 10% for raw land, which is just in the middle of nowhere. Just a quick tip there. If you found this video helpful at all, please subscribe and drop a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. Also, all the links are below. Thank you, and until next time.